Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Iconic Freedom, The Formula. Here we set a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and your outcomes and everything that follows. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. So when I talk about the formula, we talk about that periodic chart that you see on the various websites that this is posted on, where you create those elements that come together and bring harmony to your life. And if one of those elements in your life is not working, then you extract it and you reevaluate it and, again, bring that harmony to your life. So the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the script, basically, that we all live. And a question that popped into my head the other day was, what happens when you stop living from scripts that you didn't even know you were running, right? If you'd seen the movie The Matrix, you see how, that they talk about, programs that are running and people don't even know that they're living those programs out or those scripts. So the thought that occurs to me is that, you don't really break free from rewriting the script, but I think you break free from realizing you were never required to follow it. So what does that mean? Kind of up to this point, we've walked through some very specific things. You start to see patterns, and then you recognize scripts. And then you begin to separate emotion from reality. And once that happens, I think something subtle but powerful, I would say, kind of shows up. And that is that you realize that you've been living inside narratives that were never actually yours. And this is the schmutz of brainwashing, right? That you grow up in a society that is telling you, exempling to you that this is the way you're supposed to behave, that you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover and you're supposed to virtue signal and all these things that burden you from exploring the reality of who you are and what your experience is and trusting your internal authority, not chosen, I would say not examined, but mainly just adopted. When I talk about what a script actually is, it isn't just what you say, it's how you expect conversations to go or how you expect people to respond, or you're interpreting things. You're doing a backstory in your head, what you believe situations are supposed to mean and the emotional path that you're supposed to follow. And it's almost like it's a preloaded response before the reality has even unfolded in front of you. And most people, what I notice is they never question it. It's like they're so caught up that they just run it and they don't even realize that they're running it. Now, I think that there's a moment when it breaks, that it's quiet. It's almost easy to miss. And I think this is the whisper in your ear where the script doesn't land the same way anymore because you're in the reality. And even though you see somebody responding in what you would probably call a cliche at this point, you're like, yeah, that doesn't jive anymore. You start to say something you've always said and it feels off, or you react the way you used to react and even that feels forced. I think that's the crack. Not in the world, but in the script that, the brainwashing that's been done to us. It's this kind of thing. It is so subtle. Yet what I think is amazing is when you break free from it, I think it's the greatest freedom that you'll ever experience because you're no longer pulled into everybody else's psychodrama. Because a script does feel like it's control, and in many ways it is, right? It's one reason why I think people stay in them, because there's predictability and, they know how they're going to respond, and there's a sense of being prepared. But I think this is the cost, is that you're not actually living. I think you're managing a pre-written version of life. And you're managing I would say, like the brainwashing. And I think the tighter the script, then the less room reality has to show up. I think going beyond the script doesn't mean chaos. It might seem like it initially because you're not used to it, but I think it has more meaning in a sense that it's more presence oriented. You're in the moment, you're present to the moment. And that means you're responding instead of reacting. You're observing before you start assigning things or creating a backstory. Before you create that backstory, or you are allowing outcomes instead of trying to control them. And the idea of something is happening, you don't have to, I mean, unless it's, life altering, you don't have to respond right away. You can wait. Like when you go up to the light, at a cross street and you hit the button, it goes, wait. I would say, have that in your head. Wait. Give it a moment. Even sometimes, when somebody presents something, you don't have to respond right away. It could be a relationship, a family thing, somebody offering a job, whatever it is. You can always wait and let it sit and wait for the whisper. Wait for the whisper. You can stop asking yourself at this point, did this go how I expected it? And then you start noticing, well, what is actually happening right now? And that's where I think you step onto that magic carpet. You start seeing reality as it is. And I think this is the part that most people don't say out loud, is when the script drops, it feels exposed. Because now there are no, preloaded responses, if you will. And there's no emotional map, roadmap. And there's no guarantee of outcome. And I think that's a piece that's really interesting, is that if you are exploring this and you're realizing and you're wanting to say to yourself, let go of the outcome, this is where you really start to experience it. There's no guarantee of outcome, so there's nothing to be attached to. You just got to let it unfold. Just you and your ability to respond in real time. And that's where responsibility actually lives. At some point, I think something will settle and you'll realize that you don't need the script because you trust yourself, not to control the outcome, but to handle whatever presents itself. And that's where I see the shift happening. I've seen it in myself. I see it in others. You go from control to capability. You go from fear to clarity of the moment. And again, you go from reaction to response. You observe without reacting. You separate emotion from reality, because when you're in emotion, you're out of reality. You identify the mechanisms that trigger those things in you, also subtle, so that you can recognize them each time. And then you strip it down to the choice, responsibility, accountability. A lot of people can talk about breaking patterns or rewriting narratives, the gurus that are out there. But we don't have to do that, because you don't have to put Post-it notes up all over your mirror and, by your desk, and you don't have to do that. You can go a level higher and you can say, you were never required to follow the script in the first place. And you'd have to take examination of your life to realize, I was never required, right, to follow the script in the first place, to follow the brainwashing in the first place. And I think that's a different conversation entirely. Just you, your ability to respond in real time. You've broken through beyond the script. You're now present to the moment. You're living in the moment. You're letting life unfold. And you have basic qualities and skills that provide you everything. I promise you, everything you need. The ability to respond to anything. You know it. You know you have the ability to do that. You have the confidence and the strength to be able to manage it. And and it's not knowing the answer. I think a lot of times people say, oh, I know the answer. No, you don't know the answer. Trust me, you don't know the answer. But if you let it unfold, the answer will reveal itself to you. It'll be that whisper in your ear. Okay, so here's a question to sit with for this next week. Where in your life are you still following a script that you never consciously chose? Where in your life are you still following a script that you never consciously chose? And here's a follow-up. What would change if you stopped running it? If you examine the brainwashing, what is the reason that I think what I think? What is the reason that I do what I do? And distill it down. Listen, it's a little tedious of a process to begin, but once you get it for yourself, you will cross a threshold of consciousness for yourself. Then you no longer think about it because you already own it and you know what you do and the reason what you do, the why of what you do, the why for you, not for others, right? Why is an opportunity to lie. You can why yourself to a lie and scam yourself, right? You could do that if you wanted to. But if you're following this podcast and you're developing these qualities and these skills, you'll never do that. You're not going to scam yourself because you're going to be open to it. I don't want to scam myself. I want to know the reality. I want to know the reason why. Not so you can make it a biography so that you can now become a victim to it, so that you understand, why did I get up and go from here to there? Why did I get up and go make myself some dinner? What was I feeling? What was I thinking at that moment? And when you start examining those smaller things, then you start to realize it all leads to the same thing. You're looking for comfortability. I'm looking to be comfortable. And that's why I think that's the reason I think people run these scripts, is because they're trying to find homeostasis. They're trying to find harmony. They're trying to find comfort. But that really only comes from nothing external. It comes from everything internal. And that internal is, you will manage whatever presents itself. No matter how large or small it is, you will manage it. You'll watch it unfold, you will get your information, and you will have an ability to respond, and you will own the outcome and everything that follows. More information, now another choice. More information, now another choice. And honestly, that's the simplicity of it. I know people want to be out there and they want to write books, hundreds and hundreds of pages, and they want to go on their talking tours, and that's great, I mean, there's probably a little something in there for everybody, but why not break it down to the simplicity of breaking free from all of the schmutz of brainwashing? Develop the simplicity of these skills, internally examining yourself and freeing yourself from all of that garbage. I mean, this is America's 250th birthday, right? This year. What a better time to, establish and pursue and endeavor your own freedom. Become your own constitution, your own declaration of independence, if you will, and find those things for yourself that bring joy to your life, irregardless, that's not a word, regardless of what anybody else thinks. You're not harming anyone, you're enjoying your life, and that's all that counts. That's all that will matter. Okay, hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might support them in their endeavor. All the fun links are below, and if you're inclined, feel free to subscribe on Buzzsprout. I am on X and Truth Social, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. The link to my newest book, The Christmas Cookie, Stories from the Counter, is listed below. I'd be grateful and honored if you chose to pick up a copy. It's a collection of heartwarming stories that I quietly say unfold the very principles that we talk about here each week. And until next time, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and as always, remember, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Make it a great week.